welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I can assure you this frivolity and laughter is not in any way related to the second half performance. Brian was just talking to me off air before we came on and said it was certainly a game of two halves, and that it was. So Brian, having said that, I'll come to you first. Your thoughts in the second half, some of the players we saw, Urhoghide, Shaw, Murray, Hjelde, a lot of players there that obviously weren't on in the first half. I think it was an entirely different 11. What were your thoughts on some of the individuals and the general team performance?
Well, I think the players that kind of let us down a bit in the second half were the sort of so-called mainstays. Folk Christie he was just Ryan Christie, wasn't he? And Chan was right off the boil. Mikey Johnson needed 42 touches to pass a ball. And Big Urhoghide, oh boy. I know it's only 45 minutes, but that was a car crash debut. On a positive note, Lee Moffat coming on, got a cheer in the Degning household. I was happy to see him. Big Shaw looks a player, really looks a player. Very happy with him. I think Murray's not been talked about enough. I really like to look at him as well. So there's a lot of positives in general. Not as good as the first half, but for me, the players that let us down is the players that are so-called experienced in the squad, and that's a concern. Yeah.
I think I agree with that. I think Christie and Cham, if they're looking to get the second chance at Celtic that we talked about in the first half with the Jetty and Barkas, then they're not going the right way about it, that's for sure. Lawrence, I'll come to you. One of the players that did impress me, to keep it on a more positive note, was Liam Shaw. Quite a tall guy, quite a big unit of a guy to be in the middle of the park, but certainly seemed very assured on the ball, not afraid of a tackle, but also seemed to have sort of decent distribution as well. Do you think he's a player that could, steady the ship for us in the middle of the park in the coming season?
Yeah, definitely, there's a slow phrase in it, great feet for a big guy, but, he's really tenacious as well. But, when he dropped back, he didn't look out of place. The couple of long passes, he hit over about 25 minutes in the second half. Into crossfield. Before you go on, Lawrence, you're not suggesting he's the new Near Beaton and he's going to drop so far back he's going to be a centre back? No, not at all. But it's good to be able to have that cover at the back, because I think we're going to need it at times, aren't we? Yeah, we're definitely need it. As Brian touched on, the Eagle players shows the team players and probably won't work in an Ange team. Christie, Cham, Eagle players, and Cham. Worst player in the park, maybe? Well, for Celtic, anyway. And he's got a huge ego with him. And Christie wasn't far behind him, in my opinion. It was just terrible for both of them. I mean, they obviously didn't watch Ange's mic'd up or didn't listen to it when we were on the training ground, because it's, take a touch, move it on, take a touch. Not these boys. Definitely not these boys. And Cham put us in trouble a number of times. Just really poor. I actually blame him from the goal. That terrible pass from him. He was just really lazy with it. He wasn't under pressure to get away, and terrible pass. They end up winning the ball from it, and we lose a goal.
There's a comment here on the comments from the viewers, and thanks everybody for commenting on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. It's from a Facebook user whose name unfortunately hasn't come up. It says, "Yep, impressed with Shaw, and Cham looked like he was going through the motions. If I was trying to impress, that's not the way I would be going about it," and that's exactly what we've sort of been saying already. Tony, one player that really frustrated me in the second half was Mikey Johnston. We talk about how long you can suggest that somebody's a promising youngster. He's 24 years old now. He's had a couple of seasons at least where he's been a regular in and around the first team squad. At what point do you accept that somebody's potential is not something that they're going to live up to and move on to the next?
Well, it's a measure of the second half was pretty brutal, but I developed Tourette's watching Shaw and Cham and Mikey Johnston screaming at a laptop, thinking, what are you doing? Mikey Johnston, my thoughts on Mikey Johnston is very much the same as Christopher Ayer. I don't rate him. I don't think he's a Celtic player. As I say, I always couch it by saying, this is my opinion, but having watched enough of him, I don't think he's going to cut the mustard as a Celtic player. And I've said to you off camera, the one where he ran through, he beat a player lovely, And then, he can do that. He's got quick feet. He can do some lovely tricks. But the strikes has been a street footballer. You can't bring street football to normal football. This is real life football. You don't get time to perform all these pivots and pirouettes. And good players beat a guy lovely, play a pass, or they get a shot off at goal. It's kind of microcosmic of Mikey Johnson's career at Celtic. He can do a good thing, but it's followed by either running the ball at the park or running out of ideas, or the move breaks down. And a more clinical person could do either what I said, play a through pass to somebody who could go and score, or go and score themselves. There was 2 moments in the League Cup final. Edward laid on a plate the goal for Christopher Julian, and then he laid on a plate Mikey Johnson running through Hampden, the whole of Hampden on his own, and he couldn't take the chance. And I kind of said to myself, do you know what? These are the kind of career moments that define you. And I'd made up my mind before that, but that just cemented it in my head that I just don't think you'll cut the mustard, Mike, because, I'm not denying there's maybe some skill there, but we need more. We need a more clinical head. And as you say, how long can you be a promising youngster? He's now 24, he should be forcing his way into that team. He should be banging the door down, or he should be a number, one of the front 2. If that's the way he sees himself, or that's the way his career should have progressed, but it hasn't. And I don't know if Mikey Johnson has to go elsewhere to progress his career. I would certainly cut the losses on it, because I just don't see it. As for him, Sharp, I don't know what's happened. He's just regressed so badly. And you would think one player that might want to make an impression under the new manager is in Sham, but his distribution was absolutely awful in a pre-season friendly. If you can't get it right there, where players aren't even going full tilt, then you get problems. So the 2 players you've mentioned just didn't impress me at all. The guys I've touched on, the impressive ones, Murray, Felder, Montgomery, Moffat, that's I'm quite happy with Shaw. Shaw in particular, I like the look of Shaw. Not much
Tell you
what
what,
guys have said.
Tony, only Mikey Johnson's never kept Montgomery out of the team, has he?
No.
You're looking at going.
Would you play Moffat in front of Mikey Johnson based on what you've seen right now? He looks a hungry player. He looks the one that could progress. I just think he's not progressed. He's came out and he's done nothing to suggest that he's going to progress.
You've said it, 24. 24. You should be a player. You shouldn't be. You're promising. It's kind of like maybe 18, 19, you're 20, you're promising. 24, you're
in that first team, Lawrence.
Aye.
And I don't think Mikey Johnson has done enough or made his mark in that first team. Somebody enlighten me if he has.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, I'm in agreement. Brian, to come back to you, we've talked about some of the more positive points of the team, and to look at those positives, we played a back 4 in that second half. Uragidi aside, you had Montgomery, you had Murray, and you had Hjelde. Do you think perhaps we need to put more trust in them for the coming season, given that we don't look as if we're going to get more defenders in if the Vucinic deal doesn't come off? Do you think they're of a standard yet that we can put them into the first team and rely on them for the coming season?
Well, I think there's 2 ways of looking at it, Laura. So I said it before, you should almost be looking at it in 2 levels. So you've got your experienced players, the most experienced players, and then you've got a sub-level of guys like sort of backup players, and that's your Moffats, your Elge, etc. And over the course of a season, that starts to level out, because the more time I gets to them, the better there. That's why I was, when we signed Uragidi, I thought, unless this boy's good enough to dominate a box and be a European-style player at his age, why we signed him? Because we've got guys like Helge, Murray, they're developed Welsh when he come better. You get Julian coming back, get a couple of experienced centre-halves in. One of the things that I think, sort of backs up that theory is, if you look at the 2 pre-season games so far, the players that have shown are the younger players, because they seem to be taking on what the possible goal is saying. One touch pass, never stop moving, all that stuff. The players here are slightly questioning, or some of the more experienced players. I'll be honest, this might be a controversial point, but Ayetis had a better pre-season so far than Edward. I would trust a Yeti to start in Switzerland before we start Eddie. Now, I'm not saying for a second before everybody gets excited that a Yeti's a better player than Edward. I love Edward. But in this team, it looks like he's drinking the Kool-Aid almost, a Yeti, as are some of the younger players. And quite honestly, if they're, Moffat, he's looked a shining star. And I know I think Forrest is exceptional, but if he's struggling for fitness, there's no reason Moffat shouldn't be in that first team squad. There's no reason for Bell shouldn't be in, there's no reason Shaw shouldn't be in. And I think Big Buddy's really, really shown big physical presence. Yeah, he's young, but the guy's a giant. Same with Hales, so there's no reason these guys shouldn't be filtering in. They'll know the answer. They do need experienced players, but there's no reason, given their attitude so far, they shouldn't be in and around that first team.
I'd like to see them barely in and around that first team. I think they barely did enough in those 45 to suggest that he could even play against the Danes. He's just something a bit different. And he looks a wee bit special. Just my own opinion, and I've thought that for a while, and he just excites you when he gets on the ball, and I'd like to see how he would react to a crowd being there and, them getting behind him and really giving him some backing. He showed some lovely touches there in 45, and, that's exciting. That excites me moving forward.
He looked hungry, Tony. He looked like he was tracking back, he was putting himself about, he took a goal. So the attitude's there.
Yeah,
so why
results only. You look at attitude of players, and I get what you're saying about Ajeti, because there's still that element, and certainly got amongst the supporters and in Eddie's head that he's out the door. So if that's the case, then you do go with a hungry player or a guy that's listening to the manager and saying you could be the future moving forward. And Ajeti seems to have taken that on board.
Yeah, no, I think that's all fair points. Building on what Tony and Brian have said, Lawrence, the phrase "baby out with the bathwater" comes to mind of that. Should we be having a completely different attitude given the performances of some of our established players last season? Should we be given, not that we have much choice in the matter, but surely we should be given Ange licence to go with the players? It seems like he's the type of manager who's got a philosophy that if you're willing to follow it, then it's less about your ability and it's more about your ability to follow instruction. Do you think then that we should be kind of throwing out any ideas we've got about what the first team's going to be and just wait and see, talk about drinking the Kool-Aid and following instruction in that way? Do you think that we're going to see a massively different team because of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll cut players that should have cut maybe a long time ago who don't have the right attitude for every game. Some players, they'll turn it on big games and for whatever reason, it was good enough to keep them in the team. Eddie, Cham, Christie, probably the ego players as opposed to the team players. Whereas Ange's, it's all about team, isn't it? Follow instructions, you're a team, you need to follow the philosophy, you need to do what I tell you, work for each other. And if you're not going to do that, I think it's bye-bye, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I think I've just been reminded that Mikey Johnson's 22. I'm not 24, as we've
22, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I still think he should be established in the team, given how long he's had a chance to go. But we'll give him 2 more years, Tony, will we? See how we got on.
Listen, Montgomery and Moffat are still in front of him on the pre-season performances. It doesn't matter of his age.
Apparently, my hatred for him shined through on this broadcast, allegedly.
Okay.
I give opinions. I don't hate players. I just give opinions, and people can agree or disagree. I don't have a downer on Mikey Johnson. I just don't think he's a Celtic player in the making. A future Celtic player. So I'm allowed to say that, but apparently I hate him. My hatred.
No, I don't think it. Yeah, no, I don't think anybody on this podcast hates any Celtic player. We're just looking for players that are of the standard we believe are high enough for the club. But Tony, I'm going to come back to you on an area that is a bit more your expertise than a lot of the other contributors. As somebody who's experienced in media, and this is moving a bit away from the game, we've seen a lot of improvement in the output from Celtic TV, the content they've been putting out there, trying to get a bit more involved in what's going on with the players, what's going on with the staff. First of all, How important do you think that is? You're a journalist, I'm sure you probably have some views on that. And secondly, do you think it's something that's going to improve and continue to be the case going forward this season?
I think it's something, we spoke about it a lot last season. There was a real disconnect there, wasn't there, with the supporters? So Dominic Mackay's savvy enough to come in and say, right, the way you're going to get supporters back on board is to sort of give them content that they want, media content that they want, and a lot of the comments about the media content so far have been really, really positive. The supporters have really enjoyed it. They've enjoyed the access. The mic'd up one with Ange, a small thing, but it meant a lot to the supporters. I know we spoke about you talk the talk, you now need to walk the walk, but it was just wee things like that people are made to feel involved and feel in touch with their club. They got that snapshot into training, and they got that kind of message. We go all the time. We rest it at half time. We rest at full time. That kind of thing. And a lot of supporters were like, yeah, they really tuned into that. And we said at the time, not saying anything that you don't know. He's not reinventing the wheel, but it was actually just nice to see that, to see him say that, to see him say those things, to see him praise the players. And that's good football. That's good football. It was very encouraging. So if you're putting out media content like that flicks a fan switch, of course it's a good thing. Of course you're on to a winner. I mean, it really couldn't get any worse than last season, could it? In terms of the output and the media content. Brian's laughing, but that Brian mentioned the word car crash. It was a car crash last season. In terms of the media relations, it really, really was. And then I came away with that statement when I said tweets don't win titles. Remember, they were trying to be smart at one point. They won clubs in the 1888 thing. And you're thinking, that lovely soundbite might appeal to some people, but, they've thrown the 10 at that point. Do you think being clever and with some media soundbite was going to win the fans back? You're fooling nobody. So we'll now get a new Bruin who seem to be a wee bit more media savvy. They're putting out content there that the fans seems to be lapping up, and long may that continue. You just hope that they don't get off to a poor start and it all brings to a shuddering halt. But to me and you, it seemed like common sense, and Brian as well, who's versed in media. These things are common sense, are they not? You're losing your mind why they couldn't do this last season. You just think, what's going on with the club? So I think we're in the middle of a reconnect, and so far the reconnect, it's very positive, and a lot of people are liking it. So, it ain't broke at the minute. It doesn't need fix, so just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Brian, I'll come to you for your thoughts on it. As Tony says, you're also involved in media. We've gone from, as Tony touched on last season, tweets about we're not half of anything, one club since 88. Some people liked it. Some people, myself included, thought it lacked a bit of class and a bit of grace, if you like. But each to their own as far as that's concerned. But one thing that I don't think can be disagreed on is the engagement from the club this season through the fan media events, through the output on the social media channels has all improved. I think, especially their multimedia output on the YouTube channel as well. What's your thoughts on it? Have you enjoyed the content and the change in direction that it's had, and do you think it's something that's going to continue throughout this season?
It seems that way. Don Mackay, I think, is really impressive in terms of being very clear about what he wants and how he views engagement. I remember when Brendan Rodgers came in and everyone talked about the whole Trinity, and it's the board, the fans, the football. And Don Mackay spoke about the business, the football, the engagement. He's been very clear that he wants this to continue. And as Tony says, and I think everyone said, and we all agree, any content's good content. They're trying to open the club up, make the players more accessible, make Ange more accessible, tell us what they're doing, let us show. Now, don't get me wrong, if I was to be cynical about it, Don Mackay's done a few political answers as well. He's he does deflect quite well, and the club hasn't really shown us anything that is radical or revolutionary. But you don't need to if they're engaging constantly, confidently, and with enough that it includes the fans, and that engagement is so strong. And I think it's essential now more than ever, this season more than ever. It's essential that we have that, and I think that's why Ange is going to get the benefit of the doubt more than he would have done. If Law was still in charge this season, it's all the same sort of background staff, whatever. I don't mean background staff as a playing staff, I mean PR and stuff. He'd get jumped on right away for anything. I think the fact that he's been seen to be very open, he's came across excellently in interviews. I think people are buying into him and this idea more than they would have done previously. So, long-winded answer to your question is yes, it's worked really well, and yes, hope it continues.
Yeah, I think that's all fair points, Lawrence. As Brian says there, and as Tony said about the mic'd up Ange, both Dom and Ange, neither of them have done anything that you would say is reinventing the wheel, but they just seem to be very competent at their jobs, both of them, and that's something that we have lacked. The apology Peter Lawwell put out after the Dubai incident last year didn't please a lot of people, and seemed to be coming from somebody who, if he ever had experience of doing the job as he did, he was certainly behind the curve as far as that was concerned. Neil Lennon at various points looked as if the job had become too big for him. It's just nice, isn't it, to have steady hands on the wheel, both in the CEO position and the manager's position, that even though they're not pulling up trees at the moment, they're doing the basics and they're doing them well.
Yeah, I think Tony said it best. I think his quote's been stolen a few times. We're moving from, we were in an analogue world, we've now got guys that live in a digital world. So that's the difference now, isn't it? But I'm pretty sure a few people stole that quote and didn't credit him. But Tony will tell you the quote, right? It's something like, we're an analogue club in a digital age. I was referring to Neil Lennon, and I said he was an analogue man in a digital world, but that my point, you made the point there about an analogue age and a digital age. It's true. Yeah, and now we've got guys that can more than competently operate in a digital age, in charge of media and in fan engagement, which is brilliant to see, because they're largely addressing a digital audience. So, that's maybe where the disconnect is coming. Some old guys up there maybe still analogue, and still got a little bit watching stuff. But
I'm a Celtic Danalogue.
So, but it's totally refreshing. Ange mic'd up was brilliant. That's got to be better than I don't know what's on TV these days, but it's got to be better. Certainly would make Celtic TV worth buying if they could sort out an easy way to buy it. Let's be honest. If they can make that as few clicks as possible, because trying to buy Celtic TV is a nightmare. But I'm sure they'll sort that out.
Yeah, no, we were having a discussion about that before the match. Unfortunately for those of you watching, I happened to log in and see that Celtic TV had put a 2 p.m. curfew on subscriptions for today. So if you tried to do it after 2 p.m, you actually weren't able to access the match. And even if you were trying to access the match, it took, as Lawrence says, about 5 or 6 clicks to get it. They were missing out on a lot of £80 payments from people today who would have happily paid it just to get the next couple of games. So, if they can sort that out, I'm sure they've got a lot more gullible folk like me who would happily empty their wallets to purchase it. But Tony, looking ahead next week, we've got Preston North End back at Celtic Park. Surely now we'll be another week closer to the qualifiers. If we've not got any signings by then, at least you would hope, surely, for us to be putting out a more solid 11 that's going to reflect what we're hopefully going to put out against Midtjylland. Or am I being too wishful?
I do like an excuse quote, and I'll give you another one. Remember, there'll be no panic buying, just panic. I think if nobody's brought in by the time we play Preston North End, then I think you'll be substituting those words. The panic one might set in, but it's you like to think you trust the process, don't you? Or you're wanting to trust the process so much you're getting behind the new regime. But Brian, Lawrence, myself and yourself know we need players. We need experienced players, and just a couple of experienced players to come in would give you a wee feel-good factor in that European game, would give everybody a lift. You might be able to breathe a bit more easily. As much as you like some of the look of the players that have played in these friendlies, if you go into the Michelin game where always struggle with it. Mutsaland. If you go in with the personnel over these games, you'd be pretty worried, wouldn't you? Or you'd be watching it kind of like that. And again, I give him a free pass in the European scene because I think it's all been too tight. The deadline's bringing in the manager and trying to get a team together. But if you bring in a couple of first team ready players, preferably defenders, I would feel a lot better about the situation. That's, a centre back and maybe a right back. You'd feel good then, wouldn't you? Or you'd feel all right. As I said, a Ben Davis and Harfield, guys like that, you might think, okay, if we can get them to just come in and be, they're first team ready players, aren't they? As I've spoken about. The rest takes care of itself. So I quite like the midfield, and I quite like the thought of a refreshed Ajeti and Karamoko and Forrest maybe causing havoc, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's my thinking. If we're getting into the Champions League tie,
Champions League tie, yeah. Europa League might be coming sooner rather than later, but we'll wait and see.
I didn't think in my head.
Brian, Preston North End next week, as Tony was talking about there. You would hope that there is a bit less experimentation and that we come out of that game with a bit better idea of what Ange is going to use. Is there any last minute tinkering, last minute experimentations you think he's going to do, or do you think it will be this is a tried and tested sort of, an attempt to win a football match that's going to match what we're going to try and put out against Midtjylland?
Well, it seems so far that the system has been kind of the same across the game. So it looks like he's got a very set system and a set way of playing. And I think I think there will be some last minute experimentation. I think he'll probably have an idea in his head who's going to play, and what he'll probably do is if there's a couple of doubts, he'll maybe play some other players and just give him one last chance to sit and press. One of the things that I think, and we should not be embarrassed because we've not mentioned this yet, and it's really important, is that so far I've not seen Gavin Strachan with a laptop, which is absolutely. I was worried about it because I didn't know if somebody dropped him, but I'm really delighted about that, and he was quite vocal on the bench, so maybe that's something to look forward to. Maybe we have a backroom team for that team as well, but he asked some questions. I do think there'll be some experimentation still in the game. I think Preston's a decent side, play good football, and I think they'll be a good test, and I think we'll get closer to the starting 11, but I think the system will be very much the same, and actually I think that's probably more important. Because of all the players that are there that's got involved completely in the system, it might be the case that even if we don't have the signings that he wants to make, he can still drop people and want to play it. Which is probably why we won't see guys like Cham, Christie, Michael Johnson again, because they look like they didn't look like Ange players. Scott Bain as well, by the way. He was trying to do the Barkas 3DM role. He wasn't quite in the shed room, to be honest, so I'm not sure we'll see much happening in the coming weeks. Hazard, interesting to see if he's still around. I don't know if he's getting sort of shipped out or what his thoughts are, because he's not featured at all. Did Roger feature against Sheffield? I don't think he did he?
I don't think so, no.
So that's a curious one as well. Tommy is interested to see if he comes in.
Yeah, no, Hazard's a funny one. I think back to I was on with Lawrence and Paul John doing the live coverage of the Scottish Cup final when we secured the quadruple treble, and it was none other than Connor Hazard between the sticks. Looking at it 3 weeks before that match, looking at it now, it seems kind of laughable, but there you go. He's secured his moment in Celtic history, if nothing else. Lawrence, looking ahead to the Midtjylland game, we've all talked on our various bulletins about, European qualification being a bonus under Ange and something that we're willing to write off as long as he gets it right. But obviously from a financial point of view, if nothing else, it would be great for us to make the group stages, or at least progress into the next couple of qualifying rounds to get a little bit more financial boost from that. Are you any closer to thinking that that's a possibility? Qualification something that we can manage, or are you still kind of in the dark as far as that's concerned?
Still got to worry at centre half and right back. So I think we'll score goals. Yet he's looking like a completely different player. So I think we'll score goals. For me, just touching what Brian was speaking about, logic not features no really. For me, it's not a puzzle because I think Ange knows him really well as a player. So I think he's maybe going, I don't need to look at you as closely. The Hazard thing, I think Celtic are definitely going to keep him, and I think he's maybe looking at Bain and Barkas and going, right, one of yous is out if I'm bringing in a keeper. But what one of yous is decent, because if Hazard stays, he probably goes on loan, and he's maybe looking at Barkas and Bain going, I need to know which one of yous is hitting the road here, because I'd like to bring in my own keeper. But, you know, it's one game at a time, so Michelin's, we've got Preston, haven't we? The original Invincibles, now you get called that for going to league and cups undefeated in a season. So Preston were the first team to do it. So the Invincibles meet the Invincibles. True Invincibles meet True Invincibles. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Hashtag True Invincibles.
Yeah, hashtag True Invincibles.
They were the great Invincibles, Preston, weren't they? Way back before was it 1888, perhaps? Was it?
I think
it was about 1888.
I think you're
so
right.
We've got the Invincibles versus the Invincibles.
Yeah.
We'll leave ours. You just like
I was going to say,
Lawrence, don't you?
Aye. Yeah. And we'll leave Arsenal and the other lot to themselves, I suppose. But thanks everybody for watching. That was not as enjoyable a second half as a first half. More questions than answers, as I always like to say. But we'll be back again during the week for our bulletins, and we'll be doing more match coverage for the Preston match next week. So we will see you then. To Brian, to Tony, and to Lawrence, thanks very much for joining me today. This has been a Celtic State of Mind.